You'd be surprised what tools can save a life.
Hello, my trigger-happy friends. My name is Stevie Cade, and thank you for joining me as I continue my journey reviewing all the Saw movies leading up to Spiral, the Book of Saw, or From the Book of Saw, or whatever they're calling it. Before we dive in, if you could, hit that subscribe button and the little bell ding thing so you can get notified every time I upload a new video. So grab your keyboards, head down to the comment section, and let's review Saw 3. In this movie, we see Dr. Lynn Denlon become a pawn in the Jigsaw Killer's game, where she is forced to nurse a dying Jigsaw back to health, or at least keep him alive long enough for the game to finish. So 3 movies into this thing, this movie so far was a good step up, or at least a good continuation. They didn't copy and paste the first or the second. It's its own story, and it lives in its own little world, but it also unites all the other movies together. So let's dive into what I like about this film. This movie picks up immediately where Saw 2 leaves off. It reminds us of what happened to Eric Matthews and gives us a glimpse into what's going to happen to Eric Matthews, or at least what has happened to him immediately after the events of the second film. And it also begs the question, is smashing the shit out of your foot better than sawing it off? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Which one would you do? If you had a choice to either break your foot into a million pieces or saw it off or just stay in the shackles, what would you do? Let me know in the comments below. And this leads us right to the crime scene of our first victim. And here we are reintroduced to Detective Allison and Officer Riggs from Saw 2. And we get to see what kind of an impact that Eric Matthews' disappearance has made on Allison and the guilt she carries for his disappearance, which I think is a cool aspect because it's world building. They kind of hinted at world building in part 2 when they brought Amanda back from the first movie, but this movie definitely sets up a much bigger world around the films, not just previously, but what's to come. Another example of this world building is, again, Amanda. As we saw her in part 2, and we came to learn that she's actually a part of Jigsaw's plan, in this movie, we realized that she was actually a part of the first movie, which I didn't know. From what I understood, Amanda was a part of the first movie, but I didn't know she helped set up the game in the first movie, which I think is a cool element. It shows just how deeply enriched she is into Jigsaw's master plan. And they continue building this world by hinting at future films, like when he's pouring the wax on the mini tape that we never see what happens to. Well, we see what happens to that, but not in this film. And they also hint at future films a little bit more subtly, but we'll talk more about that a little bit later. Now, for the characters that I like, obviously, Jigsaw and Amanda are going to be the top shelf of this franchise. There's really not much I can say more about Jigsaw than what I've already said. You know, we get to see him dive more into the evolution of his cancer. He's once again the physically weakest person, which is a great balance of what his character actually accomplishes in these movies, but we also get a glimpse into a deeper story and a love lost that will come into play in the future films. And we get to see just how grand John's master plan is. And at times, probably a little too grand. Again, talk about that later. But then there's Amanda. We dive deeper not only into how much Amanda was involved with John's master plan throughout the previous films, but where she's at in her own state of mind. Even though she's been saved by John, her demons are creeping back through. We find her in a very emotionally unstable state that not only causes her to hurt herself, but also break the rules of the game by either killing people that are still alive and still have a chance, or rigging the contraptions in such a way that there's no way to escape. And some would argue, and I would be some of that some, even some of John's traps were impossible to actually escape from, but they try to play those off as, oh, there's still a chance, but no, there's not really a chance. But in that retrospect, Amanda set these up to purposefully be impossible to escape from. Now for the plot. I really dig the concept of this man whose life has been completely destroyed by the death of his child, and him being forced to either forgive those involved or let go and move forward. This tugs at the heartstrings. Anybody with kids can put themselves in this type of position and wonder what they would do. So will Jeff let things go, or will he let vengeance rule his life? And Jigsaw gives him this opportunity to choose by putting 4 other people's lives in Jeff's hands. One of which being his wife, which Jeff doesn't know at the time, because his wife Lynn was tapped to actually keep John alive long enough for this game to pan out, which is another subplot to this movie. There's plenty of subplots in this movie, which drives me into what I'm on the fence about. There's a lot going on with subplots, and not a lot of payoff right now for them. So I like the world building that this movie has, but it does so by putting in subplots and not really delivering on some of them. At least right now. They'll come into play in later movies, but this movie doesn't really hint at that. They're banking on that, aha, that's what that was about moment when you go see the next movie. As I'm watching this movie in its own finite world, it seems like they just abandoned a plot point. A primary one being Detective Allison and Officer Riggs. It's a subplot between those two, how they feel about Detective Matthews and his disappearance and what they're doing, how they're handling it, how they look at these cases now with that in the back of their minds. And then she dies and we don't hear from any of them ever again. Well, in this movie, ever again. Which, by the way, Allison's death was weird. The whole climactic ending of her death was very odd to me. They did the whole, they kept Amanda's face hidden, which I don't know why. Like, we already had that moment of clarification. Amanda is part of the game. I don't know why they kept her hidden. But then after she discovers that Amanda is behind all this, she like leans back and like strikes a pose. You know, okay, take me, I'm ready. It was just a very odd sequence, a bit dramatic. Kind of like the opening kill with the dude with all the chains attached to his body. I'm not exactly sure how he was supposed to get the one out of his face. Like, he's just ripping all the other ones off. Okay, I gotta rip the skin out, gotta rip the skin off, gotta rip the skin off, I gotta rip my jaw off real quick. That's one of those that was impossible even without the door being welded shut. I don't know if you can physically rip your jaw off and still be alive, or at least still be conscious to get the whole thing out of there. Maybe I missed something. If I did, let me know. But outside of that, like, I like the quick edits and the sudden, you know, the classic Saw moment of being stuck in a trap. But in this one, every shot has its own scream, and it just got really annoying. Like, I had to turn the volume down on my TV, like, dude, shut up. It's supposed to be a little too much, I guess. So I guess I'm being petty on that point, but my ears didn't like it. But this movie does deliver on some good kills, so let's do a murder montage, shall we? Now, moving right along with what I don't like about this movie. Jeff, the main character, the one who's being forced to complete the game in the entire movie. This guy is annoying. Like, it's a weird thing to critique because I've never been in the unfortunate situation to really personally know what he's going through. So I understand that, you know, he's going to be emotionally distraught and he's lost in his own world and he's full of anger and vengeance. After the first death with the ice lady, every situation that we find him in is the same. He walks in, he gets angry, he wants to watch you die, he watches you get hurt a little, he starts to feel bad, and then he turns at the last minute and either saves you or doesn't. And, well, most likely doesn't, because he doesn't save anybody except for the judge, which he later blows his brains out with a shotgun by accident. But it's the same thing over and over and over again. Like, the character never develops, he never learns his lesson, which I guess is the main point of the movie. But as somebody watching the movie, it got very tired very quickly. And another person just as annoying as Jeff is his wife, Lynn. They were made for each other. I get it. John needs to go to the hospital. You can stop saying it now. You obviously don't understand that they're not going to take you to the hospital. They're not going to go. Stop saying it. Stop reminding them every 5 minutes. Like, I felt like a lot of this dialogue in this movie was just them repeating the same shit over and over and over again. Now, the whole complexity of this situation. I know the Saw franchise is not known for its simplicity, but this movie is a far cry of what's believable when it comes to, grounded situations. Which, it's been a very long time since I've watched any of the movies after Saw 3, so I fear that this might be a consistent thing moving forward in the franchise. Oh, help me. Not only did John have to be to the second precise of how things were going to pan out, but he also had to predict exactly who, how, and in what order things would happen. Which, that's not how humans are. Humans aren't to the T that predictable. There's always some sort of X factor. It always takes longer to do one thing than you expect. What if Jeff just went into each room and said, nope, not helping you, not helping you, not helping you, and made it to the final door to walk in and find his wife doing brain surgery on John? Like, game over, I guess? Then we wouldn't have had time to dive into Amanda's separation issues, and then, I don't know, it's just a lot of shit that had to happen for this movie to make sense. And if none of it happened, then nothing would pan out the way it should have. For example, Amanda getting shot in the neck. Man, good thing she got shot in the neck and died slowly, so John had enough time to give us our obligatory master plan sequence. Which, by the way, flashes back to events that happened just minutes before. And then the same with Jigsaw's death. It's a good thing Jeff decided just to slice his throat, so Jigsaw had enough time to press play on that tape player, giving us our second master plan reveal. Just minutes after the first one. When you have to do 2 master plan reveals to reveal the entire master plan, you might have a lot going on in your movie. But John's death results in Lynn's death, which John also had to predict that Amanda would be insubordinate and not take off Lynn's shotgun collar, which also leads to the death of Jeff and Lynn's daughter, whom only John knows where she's located. How does this not make John a murderer, by the way? Overall, I feel the plot of this movie has a very solid foundation and a drive that tugs at the heartstrings of the audience. And even though I did enjoy the world building, I thought the subplots were a bit rushed and didn't pay off for us, at least in this finite movie. But I was entertained. The pacing of this movie was good. Because I was emotionally invested in Jeff's story, it kept me involved. And I consider this to be a good installment of the Saw franchise. Again, it doesn't copy and paste any of the previous movies, and it does build a world. So, for all those reasons, I'm giving this movie a B-.
That was wonderful.
Bravo!
I loved that.
Oh, it was great.
Well, it was pretty good.
Do you like this sequel, or do you think this sequel is a beginning of a downward slope, or maybe you thought Part 2 was the beginning of a downward slope, or maybe you don't like any of these Saw movies? Let me know in the comments below. Also, head over to Cody Leach's channel, as he's also doing a Saw review right now. If you haven't seen his channel before, great reviews, very keen eye, and he's pretty funny sometimes, so be sure to check out some more of my videos right here, and as always, stay trigger happy, my friends. Peace.